Okay, at this point, I'm going to assume that you have looked at the Photoshop intro tutorial. And so let's move ahead to the next thing. By now, you're familiar with the Toucan image. Let me show you what we're after here. Basically, we're going to end up with three layers. We're going to end up with the Toucan layer all by itself, nicely cut out. Look at the feathers up there, just wonderfully masked. And you're going to be able to do the same thing in your images. Also, we've got a background. Now, this background doesn't look like much, does it? But it had a big hole in the shape of a toucan. There's the hole right there. Looked like that before. And we healed the background, filled in all that area. So it's pretty amazing. Let me just undo that now. And finally, you're going to have a third layer. Let me deselect that. You're going to have a third layer that's just the original image. Okay. And this one is just in case you mess up, you can always go back. You always want to keep your original layer, your original stuff, image, whatever, untouched, pristine, so that if you have to go back and change things, you can. All right, ready to get started? Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and open the Toucan image, and there it is. Looks exactly the same. So if you'll go ahead and open yours up, first thing we're going to do is to select the Toucan. The way we're going to do this is to use the Quick Selection tool. Quick Selection tool. Okay. And we're going to make the brush fairly big. You can use the bracket keys on your keyboard to make the brush larger or smaller. And here the brush is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, I'm going for about 125 pixel brush. And we're just going to start dragging around inside the toucan. You have to be careful not to let the circle of the brush go outside of the boundaries of the toucan. If you do that, it'll select the background too. Okay, so we've got a decent selection. Oh, I missed a little area down here, so I'm going to go ahead and just click and drag a little bit down in that area, and it's got it selected. So it's not bad. Now notice right here that there's a part of this that isn't selected correctly. What's happening is Photoshop is just having a hard time telling the difference between what you want to select and what you don't. Notice that these greens right here between the background and the bottom of the beak are just so similar. Photoshop just can't tell. So we got to help Photoshop out a little bit. It's not perfect. Now, if you mess up and include too much of the background like this, hold down the Alt or Option key, and you can drag around in that area, and it will help to erase that for you. Okay. Now, we got to work on this selection and try to get some of these areas kind of cleaned up a little bit before we go to the next step. We're going to use this tool called the polygonal lasso tool. And I want you to zoom way in here on the image. Now, the way I'm zooming is I'm using the scroll wheel on the mouse. If your scroll wheel doesn't work, well, that's hard to say. In PC land, you're going to go to Edit Preferences. In Mac world, I believe the preferences is under, if I recall correctly, it's either File or the little Apple symbol that's up in the top. You'll find it. Anyway, we're going to go to Preferences, Tools, and up pops the Tools options. We want to make sure that Zoom with Scroll Wheel is checked. If you do that, then when you push the scroll wheel in and out, you're going to get this kind of a look right there. Okay, so we want to zoom in nice and tight, and remember that you can hold the space bar down and you can move around the image. Okay, that's a big help here. Okay, so we've got the polygonal lasso tool selected, and what we're going to do is try to get as close as we can to the edge of this beak. I'm going to start all the way over here, and the way we're going to do this, I'm going to hold the Shift key, and it looks like this line right here, this little black line, is pretty close to what we want. I'm just going to kind of start over there and work my way around. What I want you to do is just be just inside of the line of the beak here. Now, for this, when you've got basically a long straight line, you don't have to click that many times. If it's a curvy line, you're going to have to get closer. Okay, so I'm getting close to the end here And what you want to do. I've seen this happen in two different ways for folks, depending on if you're on a Mac or a PC or a laptop or desktop. But what you're looking for is if you come back around to the very first point and hover over that spot, you'll notice that the little icon for the polygonal lasso tool has, instead of a little plus sign, it turns into a little zero. That's telling you it wants to complete the selection if you click. So you can click there, or you can simply hit the Enter key. If I'm all the way over here, and I can simply hit the Enter key and it will add that into the selection. But I have also seen on some Mac laptops that you actually have to hover over that spot in order to get it to select. So you got to hover over it and just click. Okay. Now, we still got this area to worry about right here. I want to subtract this area from the selection. So to do this, you're going to hold down the Alt or Option key. And again, you're just going to kind of go around the edges here the best you can, selecting just inside of that toucan area. Now this little feathery area right there, we're going to have a difficult time picking up. So I'm just, again, just going to go just inside of it and then finish out this selection like so. Okay. Again, I can hit the Enter key or I can hover over that first point and click. Okay. So that looks okay. I've got a little area right here that I'd like to include. So I'm going to go ahead and hold the Shift key and notice that the icon on the polygonal lasso tool turns to has a little plus symbol down in the corner. I'm going to click and just kind of barely here, pick up that extra little area. Okay, and we're going to work our way around the image and look and see what hasn't been picked up. Here's a little area that we can pick up. So again, holding Shift, click, 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 click. You don't have to get too over ambitious with this because Photoshop's got a really good tool that we're going to go to next to help us refine this selection. So I'm just looking around the image now. Everything looks pretty good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into the Select and Mask menu up here at the top. You'll click on that. And what you should see is kind of a pinkish hue around the parts of the image that are not a part of the selection. If you don't see that, click on the little down arrow here next to the icon and choose Overlay. Okay. Now, I want you to make sure, probably by default, it's going to be selected, but we're going to choose the Refine Edge Brush tool right here. And I want you to choose a 100 pixel soft edged brush. So you can type in 100 right here, or you can use your bracket keys if you want, just like before. Sometimes the bracket keys don't work in this dialog for some reason on Macs, I've found. Hardness set to 0. And then what we're going to do, just go ahead and enter to get out of that dialog. What we're going to do is we're going to work around the parts of the feathers that didn't get selected really well. And it's not the smooth feathers, it's the ruffly feathers that we're concerned about. And we're working around kind of the outside edge of these feathers in short strokes. Okay, like so. And look how nicely that's selected. Now, when I did this before, I picked up a little bit of extra area right down in here. And so to add that back into the selection, I'm going to choose the polygonal lasso tool right there. And I can see the plus icon is already there for me. That's good. And so I'm just going to kind of carefully go around that part of the beak and make sure that it is selected. And let's see if there are any other errors. Yes, there is. There's an area under here that looks a little funky. We're going to see if we can refine that area as well. So we're going to go back to the Refine Edge Brush tool. The brush is a little big now for me, so I want to make the brush a little smaller. Maybe 45, that seems about right. And again, I'm just going to kind of sneak up on that area right there. And whoops, went too far, so I'm going to undo. Command Z, try again. See how that did? Looks pretty good. It starts to get a little soft right around that edge, black part of the beak right there. So again, back to the polygonal lasso tool, and let's just make sure that that area is selected nicely. Looks good. And I'm just going to work my way around here, make sure everything else in the selection looks okay. Seems like everything else is pretty much all right. Yeah, looks good. Okay, so down at the bottom of the display, it'll tell you output to selection, and everything else in here looks okay. Now, under certain situations, you may want to change some of these things. Oh yeah, go ahead and click the Smart Radius button. I don't know that that is necessary in the most recent version of this part of the app, but that's my workflow. It's the way it has been for the last few versions. So we're going to go ahead and click Smart Radius, and we'll click OK. And there we go. We have a selection. Now the next thing we're going to do is make a copy of the background layer. So you can simply drag the background layer down to the icon that's the second from the right. It looks like a little page with the corner turned up on it. You could also right click and choose, where is it? New layer or something like that. I never used that one. Duplicate layer, there it is. Anyway, we are going to rename this BG. BG. Okay. Now, what we want to do in this case is cut the toucan from the BG layer. So we're going to cut Control or Command X. Okay. Now, what you're going to see if we turn off that layer is, okay, we got a hole. Ooh, okay. It's looking a little funny up in there. Our selection included a little transparency. We'll fix that. Don't worry about a thing. Okay, now we're going to paste Control or Command V. Now I want to show you this real quick, V Victor. When we do this, Control or Command V Victor, it doesn't put it in its right place. Okay, so we're going to undo that. Control, Command Z, Z zebra. And this time we're going to do Shift, Control, or Command, and V Victor. That's paste in place. Okay, so great, whatever. We have a selection. We have this guy. We can turn that off. We can see, okay, that looks really good. We can see all this ruffly feathers right here and under the chin. Looks good. A little problem there, but it's too small to even notice, so we're not going to worry about it. The goal for this is to have nice, smooth, clean edges for anything that has a smooth, clean edge and anything that has hair or feathers or leaves or anything that's sort of mottled. We're looking to try to get that kind of detail in here in the selection. All right, so let's turn that guy off. We're going to turn our attention to the background layer, and here's our area that we're going to need to fill in. Now, the first thing I need to do is make a selection. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to use the toucan layer that we just pasted. Oh, by the way, let's rename this foreground, FG. Okay? Or toucan, you can name it multiple different things. I forget what I tell you to do in the instructions, the written instructions. Anyway, so what we're going to do is hover over the thumbnail for the FG layer and hold down the Control or Command key. You'll notice that the icon converts to a little marquee symbol with a finger, and we're going to click. And you'll see we get the little marching ants here indicating the selection. Great, that's okay so far, but it's not good enough yet. So here's what we want to do. We want to go, let's see, we've got to make sure that the background layer is selected. I almost messed that up. You can't do anything if you don't have that layer selected. Okay. All right, so we're going to go up to Select, and we're going to go to Modify and Expand. So we need to expand, for me, I need to expand outside of this area right here. So that's going to be really, really big. So there's our expand dialog right there. 30 pixels for me is not going to do it. Okay. I'm looking at this. This is a 2900 pixel image. That's probably about 80 to 100 pixels, I'm gonna say. So I'm gonna go 120 pixels. 120 and click OK. And okay, that's pretty good. I'm outside of that area now. And what I'm going to do is feather that image now. So we're going to go back in there. Typically, I like to feather half as much as I expand. But in this case, I'm a little too close to that edge for half of that. So we're going to go back to the select menu here, modify, and feather. And for us, I'm going to say I'm going to feather about 40 pixels, something like that. Let's see how that does for us. And you'll see the selection goes to really sort of a smooth look. That's just because the edge is now feathered. Now for the magic. We're going to go to Edit, Fill, and there's our fill dialog right there. We want to make sure Content Aware is chosen, and we'll click OK. Now what's happening is Photoshop's thinking about it for a minute. It's looking at all the pixels that are surrounding this selection, and it's trying to make its best guess at what should fill in the background, fill in that empty area. And wow, look at that. Here I'm going to deselect, Command Control D, and that don't look too bad. Okay, this is what we're going for, something that really looks like this. Now I want to run through the additional tools with you that will help us heal this image. There's a whole set of tools here for healing. Okay, we're going to try to run through them all real quick, although this image honestly doesn't need a lot of healing. The goal is for you to create a background that looks like there was never a foreground anywhere in it. So obviously we can't see the shape of a toucan here, but we do see that there's some funny areas in this. So let's try out these tools. All right, so I'm going to concentrate on this little line area right here, this little piece of white. Okay, so the first one I'm going to try is the spot healing brush. So the spot healing brush is great for pimples and wrinkles and things like that that Photoshop can recognize as, okay, that doesn't look like its surroundings. I think I can fix it. So let's see what happens. I'm just going to draw a little area here and see how it does. Nope, that one doesn't work well for us. So I'm going to back up a couple. But understand that this is a really, really good tool and will greatly help you in certain situations. See this little area right up here? I bet you if I use this spot healing tool on that, not that it needs it really, but that will help kind of force that area to sort of blend in with its surroundings. Okay. I don't know if I really like that or not, so I'm just going to back up enough to get rid of that. There we go. We'll leave that alone for now. That wasn't a part of our filled selection anyway. Let's keep on going. See what the next one is. The healing brush. Okay, the healing brush is a nice tool. I need a much bigger brush area. So again, I'm using the bracket keys here. And this hard edge right here, I'm thinking that's the part I really kind of want to work on. Okay, so how the healing brush works is kind of like the clone stamp tool that we'll cover here in just a minute. What you do is you say, I want to heal this area. I want to fill in this area. But Photoshop says, fine. What do you want to fill it with? Okay, so we look for a similar part of the image to fill this hole. So I'm going to say maybe right up in here. And I'm going to hold the Alt or Option key and click. Okay. Now what that's telling Photoshop is use this area to fill in wherever we paint here. Okay. Now it looks like I've got a hard edged brush. So I'm going to make sure and set the hardness to super soft right there. And we have a choice up here at the top, aligned or not. So let's see if I can describe the difference to you in aligned and non-aligned. This is a hard concept to get. You just kind of got to use the tool a little bit to really understand. First, we're going to go ahead and check the box for align. I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option key and I'm going to click in this area. Okay, and I'm going to start painting up here. Now watch the cursor as it moves around. Okay, That cursor's sort of just above where I'm painting. Fine, no problem. What if I want to paint over here? It's going to use, whoops, oh, I wanted it to use that other area over there, but no, it is aligning the area that I'm painting in with the exact distance in pixels from the top and left and right and bottom, whatever. It's all keeping that the same, okay? Now, if I were to choose non-aligned, okay, I go and pick up, I'll go ahead and undo, so I got that again. So I say now I want non-aligned, okay? So I start painting. See the cursor up above? Great, fine. Hey, I'm going to do the same thing down here. Watch the cursor. Now it's all the way back over where I originally clicked, okay? So it just depends on what you want, aligned or non-aligned. Kind of play with it and see. All right, the next tool is the patch tool. Okay, now let's say I wanted to take this white area down here and I really would like to fill it with that green area. Just get rid of the white altogether. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. We're just experimenting right now. So this works two ways, source and destination. Okay, it's set to source right now, which means this. If I draw a little patch around, let's say I'm going to draw a patch around this area, and I start to drag it, it's going to fill that area with that area of the patch, okay? In this case, that's the exact opposite of what I want. I want that area to fill in down here. So I'm going to come up here and click destination instead. And when I pull this down here, it's going to fill that area in with these pixels and it blends the edges. It's a smart tool. It's trying its best to figure out, what is the best solution based on the selection that I've chose. So, you know, maybe I want to come up here, fill that area in, okay? Something like that. If I deselect, well, that wasn't the best choice, was it? So anyway, the patch tool is one of my favorites. I really like the patch tool a lot. Okay, so let's think about this in reverse. Let's go back now to the source tool, or the source button, I should say. So let's go back to the source button over here. And now we're going to draw around this area. This probably makes more sense anyway to show it to you this way. So I'm going to drag that around that area. And let's say, okay, where do I want to fill it in? I want to fill it in with maybe that area right there. Okay. And so there you go, source. You draw around the source and drag it up wherever you want to go. We've got the content aware tool and the red eye tool down here. We're not going to get into these, but we could, if we had red eyes in an image, we could use this to quickly get rid of the red eyes. I never use that for some reason, but anyway. All right, I'm going to deselect and we're going to say, okay, well, that's good. We got this image healed and it looks fine. We didn't really need to do all that, but we did it. So I want to talk now about the healing tools that you're going to use to heal the background once you cut out a hole. And we're going to look at some student projects here. Here we've got Cowboy, and he's against a background here. We've already got him cut out. There's his cutout. We've got a background with a hole in it, and we've used the modify tools to expand and feather this edge. And let me turn this guy off so we can see where the hole is. So we're going to go down and fill as before with content aware. And there you have the result. There's some problems that need to be fixed. We'll deal with them as we go. I'm going to go ahead and deselect, Command Control D. And the first tool I want to talk to you about is the clone stamp tool. This is a wonderful tool, has a lot of uses. I think you're going to find, that this is it's certainly my best friend when it comes to trying to heal images such as this. So what I want to do is talk to you mostly here about aligned and non-aligned. And it's a little difficult concept to get, but I want you to try to understand what we're doing with these things. First, I'm going to start with the aligned checkbox off. Now let's just say, for instance, I want to take this puffy little cloud here and I want to paste it over on this side of the image. what I'm going to do is hold down the Alt or Option key, and it makes a little target icon right here. I'm going to select that cloud, and let's just say I want to just dab this cloud in a few places on the screen. Why would I want to do that? I don't know, but there it is. Okay, so what's happening is every time I click, it's coming right back to the same spot and grabbing that thing and putting it over here. Okay, that is non-aligned. That's the align box unchecked. Let me undo a couple of times here, get back where we were. Now let's click on the aligned box again and see what's going to happen here. Now, if I want to paste this multiple times, I'm going to have to uncheck the aligned box. And the reason is when it's aligned, what it's going to do is not only pick up that cloud, but every time I try to dab and paste over here, it's going to pick up whatever the relationship in between where we paint over here and where we chose over here. This area, this part is always going to be the same. So I can go over here. Let's say I'm going to go ahead and choose this cloud again. Okay. And okay, fine. I can start painting. Okay. Now, if I come over here and dab, notice what it's doing. It's actually looking at this part of the cloud. Okay. As I go across, it's looking at different parts of the image. Okay. As I move further this way, it's looking over here now. Okay. There is that part of the cloud. So when I start to paste, it's going to just pick up whatever is on that side of the screen in that exact spot. Okay, so we're just making a duplicate of that whole area. You could do the same thing with the non-aligned dialog, but the non-aligned is really best done when you want to dab the same area over and over again. Okay. Now, continuing on with the clone stamp tool, I'm going to go ahead and uncheck aligned now, and I just want to deal with this area down here. We've got a really kind of funky looking area that we need to repair in this spot. So what we're going to do is I'm going to hold down the Alt Option key and target this line right here, this area right in there. And I'm going to come right next to it and just paint in that little area. Just a little bit, not much, but just enough so that it looks like there's sort of a little hillside there. I might even go a little bit further. Just a little bit more and make it look as natural as possible, as if that's the way the sun was hitting that. I see there's a little spot right there maybe I could repair. Well, I mean, it didn't look great, but it looks okay. Yeah, that seems all right to my eye. Now, if we jump in here really close, we can see we got an extra branch on the tree that we need to deal with. So we're going to get rid of that. We're going to look for a similar area to paint in. And we're going to use a relatively small brush. Remember, the bracket keys are going to make the brushes bigger, smaller. I'm going to hold the Alt or Option key, and I'm going to come, I don't know, over in this area. Maybe I'll do this area instead. That seems more similar. And I'll just go in here and start painting this area in. I got to be careful because the further to the left I go, it's going to start trying to paint in the stuff that we just got rid of. So I'm going to lift up on the mouse, paint a little bit more. And whoops, I got into that area. I'm going to go ahead and undo right here. Maybe go to a smaller brush. Continue painting. And maybe I'll click over here in this area and go directly across. I'm just looking for similar areas of the screen. Okay, not trying to go crazy with this. Just trying to get rid of that one branch. I probably did go crazy. I probably deleted too much already. I can see I messed up on the horizon maybe, looks like. I can't remember now. So I'm going to choose the horizon line. Just paint that back in like so. Seems okay. Nobody's going to know the difference. Okay. Yeah, looks like maybe I probably need to work on that area a little bit more, but we're going to call it a day for now. Okay. So that is the clone stamp tool in a nutshell. Here's another one we have. We've got a chicken and a fence and a background. And when the image was filled, we got this crazy little dot. in here. Okay, move this up a little bit so you can see it. So we're going to use the spot healing brush. This one's very easy. Just make the brush big enough so that it covers the spot. Dab, and voila, it's gone. So pretty cool, huh? The spot healing brush is good for pimples, wrinkles. I'd use it the other day to a guy had a wrinkly shirt and to fix the wrinkles in his shirt. So that worked real well. Another use for the spot healing brush is to repair blemishes and so forth in the image. So let's say I want to take this area right here and I just want to get rid of that weird little crack. Okay, nothing to it. I can run these across these little cracks, and Photoshop is smart enough to recognize that I want to replace that with something else. I want to replace it with the look of the pixels that surround it. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 passes, but you can remove all of these little blemish areas. I don't know. I mean, the toucan was beautiful as he was, so maybe you don't want to do that, but this is your opportunity to use that. Here's another spot to use the spot healing brush. We've got an image here that has, we've got our foreground, it's been cut out and it's been filled with content aware fill. And what we ended up with was kind of a mess. Okay. Photoshop did the best it could, but it couldn't figure out how to paste all that stuff in. So we're going to work on this one. First thing we're going to do is we're going to use the spot healing brush to just fill in these areas. Let me go ahead and deselect, and we're just going to fill those in. Just dabbing on them, just dabbing those a little bit. Okay, that's good. Now, moving down the list of healing tools here, for now, we're going to skip the healing brush. That's the second one in the list. Don't confuse with the spot healing brush. I'll explain in a minute. But we're going to go to the patch tool next. So the patch tool has a couple of controls up here. The biggest ones are source and destination. Those are the biggies for us. So how does this work? Well, we're going to make a selection. I'm going to just draw a box around this area down here that is the problem for us. We'll deal with that all in a minute. But for the first run, we got to get rid of these drawers right here. This is the most consistent part, so it's going to be the easiest to kind of heal up. So if we choose the patch tool over here, again, source and destination, here's how these work. With source, what's going to happen when we drag across, we are going to fill with the part of the image that's on the other side. Okay, now if we were to do this in reverse, it might even be better for us because it looks like maybe we've got a little bit more to work with. If we choose destination, we will draw our box on the other side. Okay, something like that. Okay, again, patch tool, destination, I'm going to move that across, and it's going to paste that over here. And we'll do it again just for fun. Put it in over there. Deselect, and there you go. Now we end up with a couple of lines here. And we've got that area. We've got a lot of problems here. So let's go back to the healing brush tool. And let's zoom in on our problem areas. And let's just deal with those 2 lines. Smaller brush, using the bracket keys to make it smaller. And with the healing brush, remember the spot healing brush, you just ran over this area. And the spot healing brush may be totally okay here, but we're going to do something else. The healing brush tool, second one on the list, is like a content-aware clone stamp tool. Remember, the clone stamp tool just did what you told it to do. Here, it's a little bit more smart, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to tell it what part of the image we want to clone. Just like before, we hold down Alt or Option. It's best to find some sort of a line or something that we can align to. And we'll just drag downwards. And Voila, it's gone. So what's the difference in it and the clone stamp tool? It's content aware. It's looking at the pixels around it and trying to figure out what to do with that area. You can do the same thing over here. Boom, it's gone. Okay. Now, I can see we got all this wobbly area in here. This is all looking pretty good right here. We should probably use the patch tool to take this area and patch in to the other side. The patch tool, by the way, is also content aware. And we don't have to use a rectangular brush. We can use whatever we want to on this, whatever kind of brush we want to use, or selection tool that we want to use. And so we'll just take that area right there. And with the patch tool, now we want to take this and move it over here. Okay, see the arrow? We're going to move it, drop it in place, and we'll hide it, see how it looks. Pretty good, right? Not bad. We can continue that on, and we should finish out that line. Okay, the line now looks much better. Now we just have to deal with the glasses up here, which is probably best handled. Let's see how the patch tool will work for us to try to fill in this area. I'm not so sure because it is a content aware tool, so it might make the edges a little fuzzy, but we're going to see what happens. So we'll make a selection. I'm going to get these wine glasses up here. Let's just get that whole area. Let's say. Okay, we'll get that. Go down to the patch tool. Again, we're using destination in this case. We're taking this area and we're going to paste over here and see how it looks. It might be the right choice for us. We'll see. Let's hide. Command H, Control H. So a few areas yet to fix, but in general, it's starting to look a lot better, and your audience will be none the wiser. Now, the last one we're going to look at is really one of the trickiest ones, and this is one of the reasons why you really want to be careful with what you choose as your image. Now, what we've got here is a nice foreground. It's been cut out nicely. Again, we've got it selected and feathered and expanded and all that good stuff. And now we're going to fill in this area. And when you use content aware fill, in this case, remember Photoshop is smart, but all it's doing is looking at the pixels around it to try to fill in the area that is missing. And you get a crazy Picasso, okay? Obviously not going to work for us here. And so this required a completely different technique to try to fill in this area. And I know that the student did a ton of work to try to get this thing fixed. So we're not going to go through the trouble of doing the whole thing, but I want to show you the technique that he used to fix this. I'm going to go ahead and deselect. I'm not even going to bother filling in this area because it just didn't work. So what he had was a couple of good windows over here, and he just spent the time copying and pasting those windows in, and I'll show you how he went through that process. The first thing is to select the windows. Okay, and you're gonna have to be careful with this, but we'll come up here and let's see, we need the whole building really, but we're gonna work on only the windows right now to kind of make this perhaps a little bit easier to deal with. Maybe right in there somewhere. Just gonna get just that part of the window. Okay, trying to make this easy on everybody. So we're gonna copy this area. We've got the background layer chosen. Copy, Command C, Control C, and paste. Command Control V, Victor. Okay, and so that makes a copy of the window. The problem is because of the angle, that selection is not going to line up for us. Okay, so what we're going to do is use Transform, Control or Command T. That's going to make a selection And that allows us to scale this up or do whatever we want to do with it. Grab a corner, we can scale it up and so on. Hold shift and it constrains just like we've known before, but that's still not going to be the right solution to the problem here. Instead, what we're going to have to do is we need to grab these corners independently and pull on them. So what we're going to use, if we right click inside here with transform sort of engaged, control command T, is we're going to use the distort function. And this allows you then to pull these corners independently. And it's really tricky, but you can do this. We'll pull it up, we'll pull it out until we have everything lined up as good as we can possibly get it. Now that's kind of an interesting, again, little puzzle, little trick to get this done all the way across. But it is possible to do this. And if you're really careful, you can completely fill this in. It required some additional little work here to get all this to work. But you can copy and paste these things across until you've got an entire set of windows. And what this student ended up with was something that was remarkably good. Pretty cool, I think. I was really proud of him. He's a little bit of funny stuff right there, but wow, really, really a nice effect. So copy, paste, transform, distort. And now I will tell you that once you do that, once you have a set of copies like that, you're going to have to select the layers and right click and choose merge layers. Merge layers, not flatten, but merge layers. It's ghosted right now, but that's what we would use for this. Okay, hopefully that'll get you started with the healing tools. And the last thing now we're going to talk about is how to save your image. This is a very important part of the process because as it is, this image is big. Your images are going to be even bigger. Yours are going to be probably 4,000 pixels wide, which is great when you're doing production work. But if you're trying to email these files around to for approval, or for, in my case for grading, this is going to be huge. This image is going to be 50, 60, 70 megs. Okay, yours again will be even bigger than that. So we don't want that. I don't want your 60 meg file, but you do. So the first thing we're going to do is save for you. Okay, file, save as, and you're going to give it a name, toucan.psd, and save it. Remember where you put it. Okay. Now, that one's for you. That one's for you. That's your pristine file. Okay. For me, what'll help me a lot is if you delete the background layer. Drag it to the trash can down there. That helps me already. Okay. The next thing that'll really help me, click on Image, Image Size. And I want you to set the width to 800 pixels. 800 pixels. In this case, it's going to be 800 by 500. Fine, no problem. We'll click OK. It's going to make it really small. No problem. Again, this is an approval copy. This one is not the big one that you're going to use for production. Now we're going to go to the Save dialog, File, Save As. We're going to change the file type to Photoshop PDF. PDF. Okay. And make sure that the little checkbox is checked for layers. I need to see your layers. Click Save. A new dialog is going to pop up. At the top it says high quality print. I don't want a high quality print anything. I want smallest file size. And I need you to click the button right here for Preserve Photoshop Editing Capabilities. Okay? Now, you click Save PDF and you're done. Now I want to show you this real quick just to prove it to you. We're going to go up here and look at the difference in the sizes of these files. Okay? The PDF file, less than 2 megs. The PSD file, 54 megs. Folks, I don't want to download a 54 meg file, and you, trust me, don't want to try to upload a 54 meg file, okay? So make sure you do this for me. Make sure you send me the right file. I want the PDF, not the PSD. Okay? We good? All right, thanks. I hope you learned a lot. Next week we'll learn how to animate this file.